We
Oh,
are.
wait. Mine's still. Okay, go.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are back with Comics Chat after a decent hiatus. As always, it's me, Alexander, from LaSalle River Park, Maine, and Kara, who is at North Liberty at the moment. And today we are going to talk about folklore and mythology comics. We have a couple selections, both in the kids and adult realm for you each. And I believe Kara is going first. Oh, but first, before we get to the rest of the video, I want to mention next week on Thursday, the 20th of August at 7 p.m., we are doing a live discussion of the Ghost Tree. If you have not read it, please check it out online and please join us. We'll have some questions prepared, but it's our first time running a virtual book club style thing. So please join us and help us get through it so we don't do a horrible, embarrassing job, I guess. I don't know. We'll probably be fine, but we'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to pass it over to Kara to talk about one of my favorite kids comics.
All right, thank you. This is, as Alexander said, we're talking about folklore and mythology, and this is a comic that draws together a few different myths. So this uses the folklore of trolls and witches and dragons. A little background on these different kinds of myths. So trolls originated from Norse myths and Scandinavian folklore as beings who live in caves and are rarely helpful to humans. And both trolls and witches, they've spread through other mythologies and regions. So this isn't so much of a retelling as it is drawing on some of these different ideas. In this comic, we have Mirka, who is an 11-year-old girl. She lives in Heerville, which is this Jewish Orthodox community. And right away, we see that like witches and trolls are kind of like something that people accepts that exists in that world. So she basically she would rather fight dragons than learn to knit from her stepmother is the premise of this. It starts with her stepmother trying to teach her how to knit, and she just wants to learn how to fight dragons. Then one day she rescues a witch's pig in the forest, and then she's offered a chance to obtain a magical sword as a reward. But to do so, she has to face a troll. And she soon learns that there's a lot more to fighting monsters than just bravery. Because when she comes up against the troll, she ends up having to use some of these skills that her stepmother was trying to teach her. This was an Eisner nominee, and it's won a handful of other awards as well. Currently, it's only available as a library copy. One thing I like about this, it's got just a different kind of feel than some other fantasy stories. And I like Mirka a lot. She's real spunky and makes for an interesting character.
Yeah, I appreciated how anything that really doesn't have such a Tolkien basis for its fantasy, you know, elves and orcs and I mean, you can still have magic swords, you can still have wizards and everything without being so directly influenced from Lord of the Rings. Not to say Lord of the Rings is not also amazing and worth your time, but I always appreciate a different basis for mythology. Another thing that I do always like with kids' comics is the idea that you don't have to do a backstory. If there are trolls in the story, there are trolls in the story. Just that's normal. Kids will suspend their disbelief. It's something that adults sometimes need to practice to do to really stop and think. Like, you don't need to explain, this is the set reality of it, and you can just move on with the story from there and then just get to the good stuff.
Yeah, kids are a lot better with that suspension of disbelief sometimes.
And it's reflected in the books, and that's why sometimes I prefer that, just because sometimes you just don't have the time. One other thing I do want to point out, this is a series. So if you do like this, there are plenty more where that came from. I think there's at least 3, if not more by now. And that's always a good thing, especially if you've got a young one that latches on to it. Then you've got at least 2 more books on the docket you can work with. All right, is it my turn?
Yes, let's, I'll go back here. Let me get you on the screen here.
All right. So I have the book in my hand today. This is another one that is only available as a library copy. This is Baba Yaga's Assistant by Marika Makula. And this is about a young woman named Masha who is going through a little bit of personal turmoil. Her father is marrying someone new, and his new wife has a bratty daughter who likes to bite. And so, in kind of in like labyrinth fashion. So she decides she needs an adventure. And in this case, she answers an ad to go be the assistant to Baba Yaga, who you find out her grandmother was an assistant to and told her all the stories. Now, for those unfamiliar, Baba Yaga is an old Slavic myth. She's kind of your Hansel and Gretel witch. She's just an old crony trickster. And so the story of this one is Masha has to pass some tests. And I don't want to spoil much. It's a very quick read. But the first test is to get in the house, which happens to have chicken legs and wants to run away from Masha. So it's that kind of story where everything's got a little twist, and every solution is like either a play on words or is rewarding cleverness over straight courage and bravery. But I really like, it doesn't shy away from Baba Yaga being kind of like mean and stereotypically evil and tricky. Certainly doesn't shy away from the fact that she wants to cook up the children. So it's probably getting away laughing at that, but it doesn't shy away from the weird brutalness of some of these old myths. But yeah, I really appreciate that. Also throughout the book, you see different perspectives of Baba Yaga, and it even changes her design based on which folklore tale about her is being told, which I thought was a really neat touch. Like if it might be, it mentions like, some people say Baba Yaga is a trickster but sweet, and it shows a different version of her. And it's a really neat, fun read. You can polish this off in 20 minutes to a half hour if you need something quick. Kids, of course, might take a little bit longer, but yeah, highly suggest it, especially if you're in the Neil Gaiman fandom. Like this is right in your wheelhouse.
Which we've talked about before, of course.
I was going to say, that's pretty much our bread and butter, isn't it?
Yeah. I like that. I like the different perspectives. And then I also just love that she answers an ad to be Baba Yaga's assistant. Like that's so like out there, but like also such a normal thing to do.
Must have skills in hauling, obeying orders, cooking and cleaning, magical talent a bonus, must be good with heights. Enter Baba Yaga's house to apply. If only jobs were that easy to get.
All right, thank you. Now we are going to go back to another one of mine. This is called Noraway, and it is available on Hoopla, and it's a retelling of a fairy tale from Scotland called The Black Bull of Noraway, which is featured in Andrew Lang's Blue Fairy book. So this is kind of similar to Beauty and the Beast, or if you know, East of the Sun, West of the Moon. In this particular retelling, it begins with three sisters who go to a gypsy to learn their fortunes. And they each learn who they are going to marry. The youngest, Sibylla, she learns that she's going to become the bride of the Black Bull of Noraway. And at this point in the story, she's probably like the most tomboy of all of her sisters. She's kind of like unimpressed with getting married. And as she grows up, she's really like a straight talker. She's not afraid of standing up for herself and defending herself. So she kind of grows up knowing that this Black Bull is going to appear. And when he does, he leads her out of town, like kind of rudely without any kind of explanation whatsoever. And she follows him on this Odyssey type adventure where she meets new people and discovers new places and learns more and more about this black bull. And she finds out that he is actually a man under a curse. So this is the first in a series. And even though it's a Scottish folktale, it kind of, you can see by the cover, it kind of has its own kind of style and flair that is its own and not necessarily indicative of being Scottish, which I like. And yeah, so this is available on Hoopla, and I think the second one is going to be coming out next year.
I am not familiar with either side of this one, so this is getting added to my list.
Awesome.
I do love Scottish
really
myths.
Yeah, I like the coloring in this a lot, and it was just a really enjoyable read.
Cool. All right, now for my last one, we are going to talk about The Unwritten. The first book that's shown right here, Tommy Taylor and the Bogus Identity. This is a series that is written by Mike Carey, whose claim to fame is Lucifer, the offshoot from the Sandman series that is, I think it was just a canceled TV series, but is excellent, excellent work. This one is about Tommy Taylor is kind of a Christopher Robin-esque character. His father based an immensely popular fantasy series off of him, and now he's kind of this like washed up C-list celebrity that goes to cons because his namesake is so popular. And then as the series goes on, you start to notice that he might actually be the Harry Potter-esque figure, Tommy Taylor. But then it pulls in all these other bits of fiction into this big, grand good versus evil story of these two different groups trying to use stories for either good or bad. Talks about Yud-Sus, which then was corrupted and turned into Triumph of the Will by the Third Reich. Frankenstein plays into it really heavily. Rudyard Kipling, 1984, the aforementioned Harry Potter. At one point, the main character is even in the belly of a whale with every other character that's been in the belly of a whale. So it's something that if you have an interest in just like the full breadth of literature, this has a lot of fun, just kind of like almost this like Avengers style pulling threads from every single, like it all gets mentioned, it all gets used. And I had a lot of fun just kind of like, I've read that one too. Not to mention the fact that at the end of most issues, it does have a little snippet from the Tommy Taylor series that's fictional within this world that's also really neat. It's almost like this weird Harry Potter-y thing that has a root in music and jazz. So it's playing with a lot of different mythologies, a lot of different folklores, all kind of mashed together. Doesn't seem like it would work. It almost seems too ambitious, and yet when you read it, it's really, really well done.
Nice. I really like anything that is kind of like a mashup of a lot of different things, especially if they're mythologies or like classic stories or whatever. And this is one that was also recently recommended to me. So this is going on my list as well, I think.
I highly, highly suggest. This is R-rated, though, by the way. This is not for kids at all. There is one issue. The last issue in every trade is an off story arc issue, and there is one that is just filthy, but in a good, funny way.
Right.
Yeah.
As adults, we can handle that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those where it takes place in like a Beatrix Potter world, just with HBO language. So
cool. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
I think that concludes our retellings, mythology, folklore, comics chat. As always, if you have any other suggestions that fit along with this, comment on the video. We hope to see you on the 20th at 7 p.m. There will be a Zoom link on the Facebook event page to join us. We are once again, we are reading The Ghost Tree. It's really, really, really good. So please join us. Please talk to us about it. And as always, feel free to talk to us about any comics that you're reading. We love, 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 love hearing it. So.
And The Ghost Tree is a quick read. So if you haven't read it yet, then you still have plenty of time to do that. Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.